Kalamazoo fast food employee who is black claims her white coworkers repeatedly called her racial slurs and created, she says, a hostile work environment.
Yeah, the allegations are spelled out in a civil rights lawsuit expected to be filed against the Gull Road Wendy's franchisee known as Wendy'S of Michigan and 2 of her managers.
Wendy's workers went on strike in the small town of Weaverville, North Carolina to demand relief from what they allege is ongoing sexual harassment and abuse by their general manager. The decision to strike followed what workers say is months of pervasive sexual harassment against multiple young women, some in their teens, as well as verbal abuse and physical mistreatment of other workers.
We need to get these managers out of the stores permanently. They don't need to be working with the young men and women.
Wendy's of Michigan, it wasn't made aware of the allegations at the time and only learned of them after the lawsuit was filed.
I'm gonna send this video to Lisa. I'm sorry, Lisa, but this is how your other managers treat me.
To start this video off, I'd like to give a trigger warning for harassment, sexual abuse, racism, and slurs. If any of these topics are a trigger for you, please consider watching a more lighthearted video of mine, and come back when you're in a better headspace. Thank you in advance for watching. I want to talk about Wendy's and some of the allegations that have come out against them, but to do that, I'd have to first disclose that I used to work at Wendy's, and it was one of the most miserable, horrible experiences of my entire life. I've had 2 jobs before my disability got worse, and I always used my second job to base how bad Wendy's was. They were both food industry jobs, and I was 16 at both jobs. I only stayed at Wendy's for 2 months and for 2 reasons. If you ask Wendy's, they'll say it's because I had wisdom tooth surgery and couldn't get the days off, so I no called, no showed. If you ask me, however, it's because the management there was literally so abusive. Now, obviously, this one is just my own experiences, but there were points where I was so overworked and standing on my feet for so long that my legs literally started to bow inwards. If you're unaware, you aren't allowed to sit while working at Wendy's. They consider that a part of your break, or at the very least, that's what the management at my location said. I know it's common to not be able to sit at other locations, but my second job did allow me to sit, so I never understood why Wendy's was so strict about this. Another thing that happened was 2 days I was scheduled back-to-back as an opener and a closer. Back then, Wendy's didn't serve breakfast, so when we arrived at 6 a.m., we had 4 hours to prepare the food. Now, mind you, I was very bad at my job and was very slow to make salads, but everything else I was hitting the learning curve on. I knew how to make the cookies, the bacon, the chili, the fries, and the burgers. I was trained on the registers as well. The only thing I didn't do was drive-through. So the issue comes down to when I hit my closing shift. We get off at 10 p.m. and I have school the next day. We're told to clean the dining room and the kitchen, obviously. Here's my first issue. They gave me a shop vac and a broom to clean the carpet floors with. If you aren't looking at the screen, it's literally a tube hose to clean the entire dining room area, which is bigger than the kitchen is. At this point, the entire store smells like sweet burning hot chemicals because of the cleaners they used on the grill, and I'm bent over on my hands and knees vacuuming the floor like an idiot. The second issue comes down to when I'm counting my drawer. If you're unaware, I have a learning disability and physically cannot do math. So for some reason, I had totaled my drawer incorrect and had to start over. By this point, it's already 12 p.m., 2 hours past my closing. Cleaning the entire store takes a lot of time when you have to clean the seats, tables, floors, windows, the floors of the kitchen, deep fryers, grills, chili makers, and then prep everything for the next day shift. It's not a quick process, and while some of this happens at the same time as the others, it still took us forever. The store didn't end up getting closed till 1 p.m. I have school the next day. My shift ended at 10 p.m. and I was working an extra 3 hours without pay. I never worked closing shifts again after that. I absolutely refused to and pulled the school card every damn time. Shortly after that, my wisdom teeth started to impact on top of each other and I was in excruciating pain. The managers yelled at me like all the time. Constantly. If you were in the way, they screamed. If you were slow, they screamed. If you weren't doing something right, they screamed. I only ever had one good manager, and sadly my location did this thing where they rotated managers every day. When I quit, they got a general manager who stayed there every time, but I wasn't there for that. The one manager I liked was kind and worked there for over 15 years. She talked about her life and she genuinely tried to teach me. She seemed like she had a passion for her job and her title, and she didn't belittle me. She treated me like a real coworker, or at least she acted like an actual boss. She was good and I hope she's doing well. But eventually, the fair labor people called me. The Wendy's I was working at was getting investigated. I didn't know what for, but I was told to document everything I did in regards to work. Every counter I wiped, every basket I dropped, every person I checked out. I never heard back as to what that was about because I stopped working there, so I don't know what came of it. And what I can say is this. A Wendy's restaurant franchisee who endangered minor-aged workers and permitted them to work more hours than the law allows at 5 Pennsylvania locations, has taken steps to correct those violations and to ensure future compliance at all of the restaurants it operates in Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey. A recent investigation by the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division found violations at locations in Allentown, Easton, Pottstown, and Whitehall, operated by Philly Live Bacon LLC and 3 other corporations.
What I went through was bad, but honestly, it seems like a normal job atmosphere for teenagers. We're seen as expendable because we don't have experience, and we're treated like dirt because of it. What I went through doesn't pale in comparison to what other people are facing, though. Multiple other people have been facing real discrimination while working at Wendy's. Let's talk about it. If you scroll through Reddit, you'll see report after report of people claiming harassment and beratement from their managers at Wendy's.
Can you report a manager to HR? They have said some very sexual-related stuff about another employee. Obviously what they want to do. She said I'm ugly to my face. Is this normal? Will reporting her go nowhere? And this happens often. This lady would harass me every day saying white people nasty, that I stink, or need to watch myself. Anything she could think of was said. When I brought it to the attention of upper management, nothing was done other than, I'll talk to them. For months the issue progressed, and for months my mental health declined. I finally at this point said I wanted to speak to HR, but was denied that request. I didn't know until I had a serious complaint to report to the ethics board, and they said that location is owned by a franchisee, so all they could do was pass it on to the local management. So apparently it's been okay all this time for a particular manager to make racist and degrading comments about a person's disability, call women bees, and he also has been stealing money. He's been there 10 years.
Now, mind you, these are anecdotal, but I'm more inclined to believe them because I've seen the harassment employees have had to face. I've sat there in the back crying while I washed dishes because the managers have chewed me out for the millionth time that day. Why wouldn't I believe them? And none of this is touching on the multiple sexual harassment claims coming from the company.
A Tennessee Court of Appeals upheld the bench trial decision against an employee at a Nashville Wendy's, ruling that the former worker had not shown that the sexual conduct between her and her supervisor was unwelcome. The former employee, Tyshika Barnett, worked for BF Nashville, Inc., the owner of a Wendy's restaurant located near Tennessee State University. Barnett alleged that her manager, William Rogers, made repeated sexual advances and comments, and groped her on several occasions. She also alleged that Rogers threatened to cut her hours if she continued to rebuff his advances. Barnett worked at the restaurant during her freshman year at the university and claims that she could not find work elsewhere because she was on probation for marijuana possession.
Right. I want you to look me dead in the eyes and tell me that this woman wanted it, as they're actively telling you they did not want it. Their boss has more power over them, more money, can control where they work, can fire them. There's no way in hell he is allowed to sexually advance his coworkers and have that be considered normal. What it does do, however, is confirms the assault took place. They're saying, yes, it did happen, but she asked for it. That is rape culture.
Rape culture is a term coined in the 1970s designed to show the ways in which society blames victims of sexual assault and normalizes male sexual violence. It allows us to live in a society where it is acceptable to teach sexualized violence prevention as don't get raped instead of don't rape. Rape culture is a culture where sexual violence and abuse is normalized and played down, where it is accepted, excused, laughed off, or not challenged enough by society as a whole.
And it's not just Tennessee.
About 24 employees of a Weaverville Wendy's protested Friday, claiming they're being sexually harassed. The Wendy's employees said they faced physical and verbal sexual harassment from management. One employee said when she took the claims to district managers, she was removed from the schedule. To know that people are letting it go and sweeping it under the rug, moving these general managers to different locations to hide what's going on, it's horrible, Wendy's employee Charity Bradley said.
24 people report being assaulted and verbally harassed.
Wendy's workers went on strike in the small town of Weaverville, North Carolina, to demand relief from what they allege is ongoing sexual harassment and abuse by their general manager.
He has called me a C word. I have watched him put his hands on multiple females.
Arrest him!
He believes that what he is doing is okay, and it is not.
The decision to strike followed what workers say is months of pervasive sexual harassment against multiple young women, some in their teens, as well as verbal abuse and physical mistreatment of other workers.
We need to get these managers out of the stores permanently. They don't need to be working with the young men and women. Hey, Wendy's! You're no good! Treat your workers like you should!
Sexual harassment is a rampant issue in the fast food industry. A 2017 report concluded that 90% of women and 70% of men in the restaurant industry indicated they were subjected to sexual harassment. That's more than any other industry. These workers made repeated complaints to the Wendy's district manager and employee hotline, but they report that they received no help. The restaurant manager, Charity Bradley, was taken off the schedule after she pressed for a response to workers' sexual harassment complaints. This apparent act of retaliation by Wendy's upper management was the final straw for many of the workers who decided to strike.
We are out here today to fight against all forms of harassment within this company.
What they need to know is that they don't run their businesses, we do.
With the support of the community, workers have been demanding that the general manager get fired, not transferred to another location.
They need to stand up, take care of their employees, get rid of these predators that they have got within this company.
Get up, get up, get down, get down. We rebels our workers out.
Wendy's. Meet with and listen to the survivors who suffered harassment and stop retaliating against Charity and any other workers who speak up against this abuse.
Get up, get up, get down, get down. We rebels our workers out.
And what about the anecdotal reports?
My manager has always made sly remarks about the clothes I wear. Leggings. Keep in mind at our store we are allowed to wear leggings. She's older and more conservative, so I've been sort of considerate. But recently, last Saturday, she was talking to some of my other coworkers, saying that when I bend over, she can see the outline of my pussy. Her words, exactly. In an angry tone, of course.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if your manager is a man or a woman, you're still at risk of them sexualizing you for literally no reason. It's a power trip. I personally believe some of these people get off on this level of control. And it's even crazier when you consider the age range of people working at Wendy's, with 12% of the workers being underage and 59% of them being women.
According to a recent survey by the Pew Research Center, 42% of women in the United States claim they have faced some type of gender discrimination in the workplace.
So in reality, it's not that shocking that Wendy's has such a problem with misogyny and sexual abuse, because that's really what this is. It's sexual abuse on a nationwide scale that crosses multiple franchises.
Sexual abuse in criminal law, any act of sexual contact that a person suffers, submits to, participates in, or performs as a result of force or violence, threats, fear, or deception, or without having legally consented to the act. Sexual contact in this context is usually understood to encompass any intentional touching, fondling, or penetration of intimate parts of the victim's body by the perpetrator for the purpose of arousing or satisfying the perpetrator's sexual desires, or as a means of degrading, humiliating, or punishing the victim.
People may be asking me, hey, what exactly could Wendy's do when this is a franchisee, meaning that a single person owns it? Well, Wendy's is in charge of the HR department, which is run by Wendy's themselves.
Leading members of Wendy's Human Resources team include Coley O'Brien, Brian Hinnon, Dave Ferguson, Alyssa Creatore, Helena Josue, Frances Wright, Lindsay Ruthers, Robin Rikowian, Julie Scott, and Lynn Ballman. Wendy's Human Resources team has a direct impact on the company's overall culture, which is scored a D by employees.
It's unrelated to any franchisee, and as you've heard, they've denied to get involved in multiple cases. On the same note, there was never a point where I was told that I could report this kind of behavior. They're the authority. I genuinely thought that they were just allowed to do this. I was autistic and just believed them. I took things at face value. I cannot be the only person this has happened to, and I'm not. Let me tell you about the racism that's been happening.
Black franchise owners say Wendy's has practiced pattern of discrimination against them, while making deals favorable to white restaurant owners. One of the black owners filed a $150 million company with discrimination. There is a very big disparity in the type of deals they do for African American franchisees and the type of deals they do for Anglos, said Theldon Branch, who filed the lawsuit. Branch, who owns 3 Wendy's restaurants in Houston, called racism the company's dirty little secret. He said the company forces black franchisees to build restaurants from scratch, thereby taking on piles of debt, while it sells corporate-owned restaurants to whites for hundreds of thousands of dollars less. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out if you expand your business through acquisition, you have a better chance to grow your business, he said.
You heard that right. Forcing people to build things for them and then taking what wasn't theirs, forcing them to take on the debt. Now, why does that sound familiar? This is an issue because they have the option to give them these buildings that already exist, but instead they're forcing them to build them from the ground up, taking on these debts that they shouldn't have to take on because these buildings already exist, but they're just refusing to give them to them for a reasonable price. It's bonkers. Like, there's legitimately no reason why you would go, hey, I want you to build this from the ground up, which is going to cost a lot more money, instead of just giving them a building for a reasonable price. It's obviously racism. But it's more than just this.
2 employees at a Colorado Wendy's have been fired after a child received a playing card containing derogatory words instead of a toy. Manije Osowski told ABC News today that her 7-year-old daughter received a deck of cards in her kids' meal in place of a tag game at the local Wendy's in Arvada, Colo, last week. According to Osowski, racial and other slurs had been written in black ink on an Ace of Hearts card. Osowski did not notice the offensive card until her daughter opened up the package. We immediately went back to the store and I spoke with the manager. He yelled at the staff initially and said, "You guys need to stop playing games," Osowski said, adding that the manager proceeded to rip up the playing card.
And it doesn't stop there. No. You see, if you've ever been to Wendy's before, they do this thing where they ask you for your name to add to the order, and they'll call it out when it's ready. Now get this.
Derek Cage was at a Wendy's in Albuquerque on January 3rd with 2 other people when he walked to the counter to place his order. A manager at the store typed his identifying information on the receipt for the order as Darky, according to a lawsuit Cage filed this week in New Mexico, charging that Wendy's violate New Mexico law by discriminating against him. Other defendants include Colorado and New Mexico franchisees of Wendy's, Wendy's of Colorado Springs, and the company Wen New Mexico. The lawsuit asks for unspecified monetary damages. Cage and his attorney Paul Linenberger said the case is really about addressing racism. Cage, 36, said that when he approached the store manager about what she wrote on the receipt, she kinda giggled. She thought it was funny. He later posted the receipt on social media. Wendy's reached out and offered store coupons. He later was offered sums of $1,000 to $3,000 if he would remove a social media post about what had happened, according to the lawsuit.
This happened in my city, Albuquerque. This is sadly the type of discrimination that has been normalized throughout the franchises. They've been made to think that they're allowed to act like this and that this is all right. These managers do not care. It's insane the type of things that they're able to get away with, but we haven't even talked about the playing field incident yet.
The incident happened on Wednesday night when members of the Woodstock Academy basketball team stopped on the way home from an away game to eat at the Wendy's at 2 Pratt Road in Plainfield. Just after 10 p.m., police officers responded to the fast food restaurant when a customer called 911 reporting an argument over the refusal of service. Members of the Woodstock Academy basketball team told police that the manager refused service and used racial slurs, police said. A statement from Woodstock Academy said the manager directed expletives and racial slurs at 2 coaches, Dante Adams and Denzel Washington, when he was asked about why service was being refused. Police identified the suspect as 22-year-old Brett White and said he admitted to using racial slurs and was placed under arrest. The franchise organization that owns the Wendy's restaurant in Plainfield is condemning the behavior the manager is accused of and said White no longer works there.
The usual post-game Wendy's stop for the Woodstock Academy basketball team ended Thursday with the restaurant manager in handcuffs and the team pretty rattled.
What do you do in a situation like this?
Team coaches Denzel Washington and Dante Adams say they went in to speak to the Wendy's manager, Brett White, after he disrespected some of their players. It was then they say White used racial slurs and became belligerent. Plainfield police came, arrested him, and charged him with breach of peace.
So the safety of our kids is the most important thing.
Tonight, Wendy's says White is out of a job, saying we condemn this manager's conduct as completely inconsistent with our values and have taken prompt and immediate action. The manager is no longer employed with the company. We are committed to working with our teammates to ensure that our restaurants continue to be welcoming to all who visit.
We're not surprised. We have to be honest that there is hatred and racism everywhere you go.
If I overreact or if I happen to react to my first initial thoughts, I could be the one walking out in handcuffs.
The school says the students were on the bus and did not hear any of the slurs. Extra support was offered today to students to help them process it all.
Listen, we've all dealt with a big rush coming in, but you never, ever, ever resort to anger, let alone racism. There's no excuse for racism, ever. Ever. But the fact that he resorted to anger when it's literally his job, he's the manager. It's annoying when you have a big team of people coming in because it's nice if you have a pre-warning to say, hey, could you start making these before we come in? We have no pre-warning. It's kind of like having a big group come in and you have to make all this food for them. It's a lot. But that's your job. You know what I mean? You don't get pissed over that. And wouldn't you believe it if I told you this wasn't the end of it?
I had a Caucasian lady come to my job and call me an N-word over 20 times, and my managers didn't do anything about it, the minimum wage employee said Wednesday, adding the police were not called to the scene. She spit at me 2 times and then parked and came inside the store and started calling me N-word bitches and all of that extra stuff. Harrell, a Trenton resident, claims the incident started when the customer ordered a junior bacon cheeseburger with tomatoes and no onions through the intercom. Taking the order, Harrell informed the customer that it already comes that way, and the woman responded, "Whatever N-word." I said, "Excuse me," Harrell alleged. The customer said, "You heard me, bitch." The Wendy's employee then told a manager, who was also wearing a headset, possibly overhearing the exchange, that she would not take the order. Harrell claims the manager instructed her to take the order, and that the customers are always right even when they're wrong.
And this still isn't enough. There's more.
A former Kalamazoo fast food worker, who is black, claims white coworkers repeatedly used racial slurs and offensive language directed at her, and created a hostile work environment, according to a lawsuit filed in Kalamazoo County Circuit Court Monday. Sophia Cargill claimed she was called the N-word, and Bonneau on multiple occasions during her stint as a manager in training at the Wendy's on Gull Road in July 2021. Cargill's attorney, John Marco, said the restaurant failed to take action after Cargill made complaints to management about offense language on 3 occasions, according to the lawsuit. Wendy's of Michigan, the franchisee for the restaurant, and 2 employees, Tammy Van Dusen and Michael Resor, were named in the lawsuit, which accused the restaurant of being the source of disparate treatment, having a hostile work environment, and being responsible for a constructive discharge in violation of the Michigan Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act.
Clean, it means the fucking clean, bitch!
Whoa! Whoa! I got you on camera, Mike! I got you on camera, Mike! Guess what, Mike? That's the end of the road, Mike!
No, it's not.
Yes, it is!
No, it's not.
That's the last time. Yep. Look how disrespectful he is. I'm gonna send this video to Lisa. I'm sorry, Lisa. But this is how your other managers treat me.
What have you done since we closed? Absolutely fucking nothing.
Absolutely cleaned out the first Frosty machine. I wasn't done.
Actually,
I wasn't. Jarrell did not. Jarrell, did you clean out that Frosty machine?
you drained it.
No.
For him.
No. No. That wasn't the case. That's why you should mind your own business.
It's still not clean.
It's not clean because I wasn't finished. Like I just said. Sorry and stuff.
Fucking communist little fucking bitch.
I prayed for you. Alright, y'all. So my boss called me into the office after I got the statement in or whatever. I just got suspended pending an investigation. Mind you, they did not suspend this man yet, right? He came into work, did his job. They told me that they might not be able to pay me during the whole suspension. He said, I asked. They said they might not be able to do that, and they're just going to pay you for the work that you did. That's fine with me. Hope you guys enjoy y'all day. I'm going to enjoy mine. Thank you.
Wendy's has shown a continued lack of understanding when it comes to upholding the values they claim to have. They claim to be caring and accepting of black people, yet they allow this behavior to continue on and on and on, and they do nothing to prevent it from happening. They do nothing to educate their workers on how to file reports, and even when they do, they go ignored. What are we as workers supposed to do to defend ourselves from our managers? What are workers of color supposed to do when being discriminated against with risk of losing their job because the person being racist to them is their boss? None of it is okay, and it's shocking that it's gotten this far. It's something we need to spread awareness to, because people seem to be blind to the fact that Wendy's is actively harming and abusing their employees en masse. And the accusations just keep coming out left, right, and center. And lastly, let me leave this out on a lighter note and tell you a little trade secret. This is completely irrelevant to anything I've said here, by the way. But it is the reason why I can't eat at Wendy's in Albuquerque anymore. Like, physically cannot. So when I worked there, we had these deep fryers with alarms set for 30 minutes. This was how long the food was allowed to sit out before you threw it away. Well, I worked there close by the mall, so we got decent foot traffic depending on the day. Fridays, weekends, and Mondays were good for us, but the other days were not the best. Certain Sundays were good because there was a church nearby and we had people coming in. All that to say, we always had fries loaded up. This meant that we wasted a lot of fries because we always had fries loaded up, even on days where foot traffic wasn't decent because we wanted to quote-unquote prepare for the rush. Long story short, those fries would get left out for hours sometimes because the managers just didn't want us throwing away too much food. They would put the fries in the deep fryer again for a couple of seconds and throw them right back on the rack. This is why your food is all old and crunchy sometimes, because it's literally old and crunchy. It ruined fast food for me. And this is why I hate Wendy's and everything to do with it. I think it is genuinely such an evil company, and I can't even put into words the things they've done to people. The racism, the harassment, the sexual abuse, the power trips, the breaking child labor laws. It's insane. It's a lot. It's something that I can't believe isn't talked about more. Maybe it's because I work there, but I can't condone the things they do. It's crazy. But that was my video. If you didn't know any of the information in this, why don't you go ahead and give me a like for educating you? If you dislike the video, go ahead and dislike. I can still see that, you know. And go ahead and turn on the bell notification so you're notified when I upload. And that'll be all. Bye, guys. And honestly, this wasn't even touching on the transphobia that has happened because it is solely anecdotal. There have been no reports coming out. There's nothing like that. It's just people on Reddit talking about the transphobia they face while working there. And it's horrible. It's one of the things you can technically add to their list if you're taking everything they say at face value. It's insane. I'm glad I don't work there anymore. I will never work there ever again. It was hell. But yeah. Oh, also I can totally confirm the chili comes from a bag. It's not bad. I mean, a lot of things come from a bag in your life. You probably came from a bag unless you're a C-section. Yes.
Head out to...
Am I wrong?
To Home Depot, and... You know, guys' balls could be considered bags, so they probably did come from a bag either way.
Yeah, they came from a bag. But yeah, the chili comes from a bag. Some people thought that was some huge revelation, but like, it's pretty normal in the fast food industry. That's all. Bye-bye.